We're all good.
Go, I think. I don't know why.
Aaron.
You're right.
So Sukkot is a very interesting holiday. It's part of two different cycles that we have. Right? We're familiar that we have the Shalosh Regalim, the three pilgrimage holidays, and we have Pesach, which is the Exodus from Egypt, followed by Shavuot, and in this order, right? Pesach, the Exodus from Egypt, Shavuot, standing by Mount Sinai, receiving the Torah, and Sukkot is all the years that we were there in the desert on our way to the land of Israel. We got a little bit delayed in the process, right? That was the Meraglim, the spies, the scouts, and back in New York with LaGuardia and JFK going over my house all the time, right? So so Sukkot is the next step, right? So it's the Exodus, it's Torah, and then it's post-Torah in the Midbar as we are traveling. And whereas Pesach was an event, and Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai, was an event, Sukkot is celebrating a 40-year event of God's protection. So on one hand, Sukkot is part of the Chagim, the Ole Regel, the Regalim cycle. But also we have in the month of Tishrei, known as Yerach HaEitanim, the powerful month because it's so filled with holidays. We also have Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. So we also have Sukkot as part of that cycle. So the Vilna Gaon explains how Sukkot fits into the cycle of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And we're going to be seeing how the connections that we have between Sukkot and the Zman Mashiach. Hi Rivka, you have a seat? We have a seat for you right over there. You're better over there? You know, Rick?
I need to walk in here.
Well, Chai Rif, do you want to sit over here? This.
Thank you so much.
Okay. 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 So what we're going to be working on today is the connections of Sukkot to the cycle of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And we're going to see the connections of Sukkot to the Zman Mashiach, to the Messianic era. So let's, yes?
Not to introduce, but Shmei Atzeret Sukkot Torah, are you including them under Sukkot?
I'm going to include a little bit of Shmini Atzeret. We're not going to get into Simchat Torah today. Okay? So the Vilna Gaon, who, oh, good, thank you. The Vilna Gaon writes as follows. We'll just go right to the English. All the concepts of the month of Tishrei, they are a remez, a hint, la'atid lavo, to the future. Let's hear how this cycle works. I have to read in Hebrew also because I like to double check the English. Ki mitchila hu yom hadin b'Rosh Hashanah. We first begin with the day of judgment on Rosh Hashanah. The achar kach slichat avonot, followed by the forgiveness of the sins, which takes place b'Yom Kippur on Yom Kippur. The achar kach, and afterwards Sukkot, Hashmini Atzeret. We have Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret, v'Simchatan, and their rejoicing. V'chein la'atid lavo. Wow. So the Vilna Gaon says this is mirroring that which will be la'atid lavo, that which will be in the future. Tchila, Yom Hadin HaGadol. First, there is the day of great judgment. V'achar kach, afterwards, v'zarakti aleichem mayim tahorim utahartem. Afterwards, we'll see the prophet soon, the sprinkling upon you of purifying waters, and you will be purified. Ki eslach la'asher ashir, and whatever is left after that purification that still needs cleansing will be forgiven. Good to see you. The achar kach, and afterwards, basukot, on Sukkah, chupot sheva. There will be the 7 canopies. Ukiyadua, as is known, ukamoshi kaltuv, as it says, v'sukkah tiyeh litzel yomam. Zman simchatenu. Sukkah will serve as a shade, as protection by the day, during the time of our rejoicing. V'amdu zarim u'ra'ut sonchem. Strangers will stand up and will shepherd your sheep. So Sukkot is an allusion to that which comes afterwards. So there is the day of great judgment, there is the purification, and then there is us ushering in this messianic times, this time to come, right? Where we have the close, right? The sukkah represents that protection. We'll soon see a beautiful idea from Rav Hirsch. The protection that we have, which is from Hashem. That is where our protection is. That is where our connection is. That is who we are. That is what we are all about. And everything else is really illusory. Everything else are these illusions that are around us.
Rabbi?
Yes?
What is the significance of strangers will stand and shepherd your sheep? That's an interesting phrase.
Yes.
I don't see how it fits in what you're saying.
So at that point, everyone will either be playing an active role in the service of God or a supporting role to those who are serving God. Okay? The achar kach Shmini Atzeret. And afterwards comes Shmini Atzeret, sheyichlu hakofrim be'elokei emet, v'yismichu Yisroel levadan atzeret tiyeh lachem. At that point, those who deny God, who are continuing to deny the true God, so at that point they will no longer continue to exist, and will be left with those who will be atzeret yelachem, and atzeret, or completion, will be for you. That will be those who have either all along been serving God, or at that time recognize and are serving God in the true manner. So it comes out that Sukkot is very much a part of this high holidays of din, judgment, cleansing, and then the bliss that follows afterwards. And we go through Rosh Hashanah and Kippur and Sukkot, the Zman Simchatenu, the time of that closeness. The Sukkah is referred to as Tzila de Mehemnuta, the shade of God's providence, of the Holy One. And that's what we enter in over there. And we do a lot of things on Sukkot that represent this idea of this redemption. As I mentioned before, the Sukkah is like a miniature model of Gan Eden, right? Where we no longer have any need for any protection. We don't have any need for all of the stuff we have, right? We move out of our house, we go into the Sukkah, and we realize, I have what we need. I have the people around me, right? I don't need all this stuff. You know the rule of stuff? The rule of stuff is as much room as you have, that's how much stuff you have that fills it. Yes, Ilana, good to see you. And good to see you, Rick. Yes. Yes. There are certain heterim, there are certain permissible approaches, but the mitzvah is to be living in the sukkah. Yeah. Eating, sleeping. Yeah. Yes.
So the sukkah and
I'm sorry, just one second. But women are actually exempt from the mitzvah of sukkah. Okay? So you have it a little bit easier. Okay? Yes.
so it's the in the time of Mashiach, it's the leviathan that's going to be made into the sukkah, and then the shore that's going to be the meal. But I always wondered why it says that tzaddikim are going to be first. Are we all going to be tzaddikim at that point? And if so, who are the tzaddikim?
So I don't know if we're all going to be
Besides the
tzaddikim.
obvious ones.
I don't know if we'll all be tzaddikim at that point. You know, at that point where it's all very evident, that's no longer the point of self actualization, of growth, right? We want to be tzaddikim when that time ushers in, because at a certain point, right? The Ramban, very fascinating Ramban in Devarim, chapter Perek Lamed Pasuk Vav. I remember it's Lamed Vav at the tzaddikim, right? So Perek Lamed, chapter 30, verse 6, right? So there he explains the pasuk, which speaks about God said, "I'll take away the heart, umaltem et besar at levavchem. I will circumcise your hearts." And he speaks there about the time when Mashiach comes, that it will be a time when everyone's going to do what's right naturally, the same way that I don't need to be told to breathe, I don't need to be told to eat, right? There's certain things that we just do naturally, instinctively. So serving God we will go back to that instinctive serving of God. So you're not going to have the challenges that come along with it. Now, at the Sukkah, which is this mini Gan Eden, so guess who comes to visit us in the Sukkah? Each night we have what's called the Ushpizin. Who are the Ushpizin?
I want Rabbi Sachs.
Huh? Who are the Ushpizin? Our honored guests, right? And even better than, you'll forgive me, the Rabbi Sachs is Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, David, Shlomo, and Yosef, right? I mean, those are pretty illustrious guests. Now, why are they coming to our sukkah? Right? They're coming to our sukkah. They heard about Natalie's baking. No. They come to the sukkah, and everyone is invited to my sukkah on Monday, the first day of Sukkot, at 4:45. We're having a community with, just get together, we talk, we sing, we socialize, we eat, right? Got to do that in Judaism, right? Can't forget about eating, right? So that's 4:45 on Monday, the first day of Sukkot. So please, everyone, we don't drive on Sukkot. Yeah, we don't drive on Sukkot.
Chalamoid, you drive.
Chalamoid we do, right? This is on Sukkot. Right, so why are these Ushpizin coming to visit us? Well, this is Me'ain Olam Haba. This is a taste of Olam Haba. And in Olam Haba, we hope and pray that we will merit to be reunited with all of our ancestors, going back all the way to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? And the other Ushpizin. Another aspect of Sukkot, we take the 4 species and we wave them together, right? The etrog has both taste and fragrance, representing those who have Torah and Masim Tovim and good deeds. And we have the Hadassim, the myrtles, which have fragrance but not taste. We have the lulav, which has taste but not fragrance. Now he makes a delicious lulav cake. No, I'm kidding. What's the taste of the lulav? It comes from a date tree, palm tree, right? The dates. Okay, you don't eat the lulav. Don't try that. Okay, and then the aravos have neither the fragrance nor the taste, referring to those who have neither mitzvot, Torah mitzvot, and masim tovim. And what happens? We are all united. We hold them all together. And that unity is representative of this Messianic times. The Haftorah that we read on Sukkot is from the Navi Zechariah, and that is source number 2. Okay, so we have Hine Yom Bala Hashem V'chulak Sholech B'kirbech. Behold, God's awaited day is coming. Your spoils will be divided in your presence. I shall gather all the nations to Jerusalem to wage war. The city will be conquered. Then God will go out and wage war with those nations, as on the day he waged war, the day of battle. Jumping to verse 9. V'ayashem lemelech al kol haaretz v'yom hu yeh Hashem echad u'shmo echad. Sound familiar to anybody? Sure hope so. Right? And that day Hashem will be the Melech, the king of all the land. V'yom hu yeh Hashem echad u'shmo echad. And his name will be one. They explain very beautifully the idea that his name will be one. Right now we have different names of God that describe different attributes. And there are some that describe God and his mercy and his attribute of mercy, Rachamim, and there are those that describe it as Din, as judgment. Ultimately, he'll be one, his name will be one, meaning mercy, and will understand, compassion, will understand that everything that took place, even that which seemed to be the most horrific, was actually an act of kindness, of mercy on the part of God. Lastly, Yeshvu ba v'cherim lo ye'od v'yashva Yerushalayim levetach. They will dwell within her. Destruction shall be no more. Jerusalem shall dwell securely.
Rabbi, it sounds almost like what happened at Yom Kippur. Hashem tricked them to go over there to knock them out.
Well, I wouldn't say Hashem tricked them. I wouldn't say God tricked them over here. God will trick anybody over here.
They were misled to go in there.
Well, they were not misled. They're chasing after a people by Yam Suf, by the Sea of Reeds.
Yeah.
They're chasing after a people who just had these 10 miraculous plagues come to deliver them.
Yeah.
And then they have them trapped, cornered, and then the sea splits. And the children of Israel go through the sea.
Yeah.
Now, with any logical thinking, they would realize it didn't split for us.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say that God tricked them. God doesn't trick anybody. God wants us to do good. I think they were given a very, very clear message that you're not supposed to harm these people, and miracles will happen for them to escape. And if you think going into the sea, if you think it's split for you, you're going to find out that it didn't split for you. And also over here, Dove, the nations of the world, most of them, hopefully, will recognize God and not come to battle against the Jewish people and against God. Those, they're not being tricked. Those who choose to be obstinate, so they will enter into this battle of Gog Magog, right? Translated as Armageddon, but we're going to hear from Rav Hirsch the actual meaning of Gog and Magog is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible. Yes. Is that a hand, Chai Rivka? No? Good. B'tei Avon. Yes. You know, look, we have our unbroken tradition, transmission of it. Do you believe that George Washington lived? How many of us have seen George Washington besides on a dollar bill? Right? You know, there's certain things that have just been passed down generation to generation to generation. And, you know, it's inscribed in the Bible constantly. Things that we find in the Bible they are, when you go to the archaeology in Israel, you see exactly where things were built, as they were built, as it says that Shlomo built Gezer and all these different places. They find exactly as it was built, right? The findings of the way that the barter took place, right? In the Bible was exactly the way things were done in those times, and that is our faith. Someone once, I think, went to Rabbi Yisroel Salanter. He was visiting a house of a family, and their daughter was a concert pianist. And someone said to him, Rabbi, if these miracles happen, how come we don't see these miracles? All right, let it happen again. All right, so he just continued the conversation, and then he turned to the daughter and he said, I understand that you're a concert pianist. She said, yes, I am. He said, please, I'd like to hear you play. I'd like you to show me that you are actually of the caliber of a concert pianist. And she got a little bit insulted. And she said, I'm a concert pianist. I'm known far and wide as a concert pianist. I don't have to show my abilities to every person that comes along and says, oh yeah, well, let me see. And once he got the conversation to that point where he wanted, he turned back and he said, God doesn't do miracles. We used to on demand, right? That's the whole big thing, our world. Everything's on demand. God doesn't do these things on demand.
It's not a
and it was done. It was done in order to establish the foundations of our nation, and now we build off of that. Yeah. Yes, Chayr. Absolutely. Absolutely. Rav Yaakov Emden says that if you want greater miracles than they ever experienced by the Exodus, look at the existence of the Jewish people today. Here we are, right? Here we are, 20 people gathered around to learn Torah. Look at the existence, the viability of the Jewish people today, when every nation, right? Oh, wonderful England. Do you know how many times we were banished from England? It's just, right? As Mark Twain, who was not a great friend of the Jews, but puts it, how the Jews have just managed to rise to the top with at least one hand tied behind our back. Right? So he says that's the greatest miracle that outshines everything else, and we are experiencing that on a daily basis.
To go back to Gog and Magog, the Torah alludes to the threat coming from the north. So how can you expound on how Rabbi Hirsch interprets? Yeah,
we're going to see in just a moment.
Oh.
Actually, that's going to be source number 3.
Okay.
This one posit from Zechariah. Haya kol notam ekologim abayim al Yishalayim alu midei shana v'shana lishtachvod lemelech Hashem tzavakot lachoged chag haSukkot. And it'll happen that all who will be left among the nations that come upon Jerusalem, meaning those who are not looking to fight against God, but those who are joining, they will ascend every year to prostrate themselves before the King, God, Master of Legions, and to celebrate the festival of Sukkot. Right? So Sukkot is this Messianic, and that's when we speak about this Gog and Magog period, the Armageddon period, the Messianic period, the holiday that they will all come and celebrate together is the holiday of Sukkot. Source number 3 is Rav Hirsch, which is incredible. Rav Shimshon Hirsch discusses the interconnection between the war of Gog and Magog and Sukkot, right? So, as always, the Hebrew just contains so much, and the translation becomes nothing, right? Becomes an empty shell. I was talking to my son, right? Who my daughter-in-law, Beth Hashem, is due very soon, and he said the doctors are not sure about the exact due date. And I said, it's simple. Right? And you can't make these things up. I said, take the Hebrew word for pregnancy, Herayon, and the gematria, the numerical value of Herayon is 271. Right? Which is your 9 months. Right? That's how long a pregnancy is. That's the 9 months. Right? That's there in the Hebrew word for pregnancy, Herayon. I mean, you can't make these things up. Right? They say truth is stranger than fiction. Right? You can't make these things up. So the Hebrew is Gog Umagog. Let's hear what he says now. In the name Gog, one recognizes the word Gog. What does Gog mean? Roof. And thereby at once sees the contrast to Sukkah, the weak, unstable covering of foliage. So you have Gog, that roof, not here, but in a regular California building you got, right, and they keep raising, right, every 3 years, right, the architects change exactly what it needs to be to make those Gogs, to make those roofs secure, earthquake, you name it. There's Gog, that strong roof, and then there's the Sukkah, right? We have the palm branches on top. Actually, the whole history of mankind consists of this contrast. Just as people have the power to make themselves safe and secure against their earthly contemporaries by sturdy walls, so they delude themselves into thinking they can make themselves safe and secure against that which comes from above, against God and His power to direct matters. They think they can find security in the protection of their own might, take their fate into their own hands. Right? One of the very first examples we have, right, is Nimrod and building that tower in order to control things, and crown the building of human greatness with gabled roofs. What's gabled? Sorry. Gabled? What was that? Huh? Okay. I'm just not familiar with that term. Rendering them, sorry? Okay.
How many peaks there are?
Rendering them independent of God. Right? That is what the world does. Right? We try to, I mean, sadly you see it even in Israel today. A very interesting phenomenon. Israel, actually the pasuk says, the verses say, that Israel will be different than the other lands. It won't be like Egypt, where you were irrigated by the Nile. Here it'll be from the rain. Here it'll be from the rain, right? Now, the rain is incredible. You go to sleep at night, you wake up, and everything is evenly watered. Right? You don't have to start digging trenches. You don't need to start hauling the water. It's beautiful. It's incredible. At the same time, you don't have the dependency of a Nile. It rains or it doesn't rain. And therefore that pushes us to constantly have to be calling out to God. We're going to be altering our prayers pretty soon and inserting the Mashiv HaRuach and Morid HaGeshem, the praise to God that He brings the rain. We'll start to ask for the rain, V'tein Talam Atal Levracha, because we have this dependency, this relationship that needs to constantly be worked on and nurtured. So along came Israeli ingenuity, and we now desalination, right? And it's incredible. It's incredible. And now there's an endless supply of ocean water that Israel is leading the world in the desalinization. I think I got it right that time, right? And yet, there is this incredible drought going on in Israel now, and it is affecting it, right? And obviously, I'm not. You need a navi, right? But to me, the message is: don't depend on the Gog. Don't depend on the roof, that you can do things to control nature, right? You're in my hands, and I want that relationship with you. I want that relationship with you. And, certainly, earthquakes, tornadoes, floodings, tsunamis, it lets us know that with all of our sophistication and all of our technological developments, right, we are vulnerable, we are fragile. But that's the God that he's talking about, right? We delude ourselves into thinking that we can make ourselves safe and secure against that which comes from above, against God and his powers to direct matters. Very famously, what were they saying about, how did they advertise the Titanic?
Unsinkable.
Yeah, the boat that even God can't sink. Now, once they say that, you really don't want to go on that boat. You really would prefer not to go onto that boat.
What was the way of arrogance?
Yeah, exactly.
Which one is that again?
Exactly. They think they can find security and protection of their own might, take their fate in their own hands, and crown the building of human greatness with those roofs, rendering them independent of God. The war of Gog and Magog is the battle of Gog, roof, against Sukkah. Sukkah. Right? The fight of the roof illusion of human greatness, which never allows rest, against the Sukkah truth of cheerful confidence and serenity, which comes of placing one's trust in God's protection. It's Gog against Sukkah. So what's Gog Magog? Rav Hirsch's explanation of the Gog Magog relation bases itself on the Hebrew grammatical rule that the prefix mem, Magog, expresses the idea of projecting something. For example, or is light, Ma'or is a luminary, that which projects light. Luminary is a heavenly body which projects light. So too, Gog means roof. In Hirsch's view, it represents the philosophy that man can insulate himself against the heavenly power of God. Magog is projecting that philosophy onto earth, spreading that philosophy. So it's going to be, the ultimate battle is going to be Gog Magog. Those who have that philosophy and have tried to inculcate the world with that view is coming in a battle against God. Because we are unsinkable. We are the Titanic. It is that mindset that brings about the war of Gog and Magog. So Armageddon just doesn't do it. I know what Armageddon is, right? But Armageddon is not Gog and Magog. Gog and Magog is that this whole philosophy in life on one hand, and the Sukkah on the other hand. The Sukkah is that we leave the confines, the assumed protection, security of our homes, and we recognize that our security is only in the hands of Hashem. Continuing on this Messianic idea and how Sukkot represents that, unlike the other karbanot offerings that are brought on other holidays, the temple offerings, the Beit HaMikdash karbanot of Sukkot, are dedicated to the nations of the world. Over the course of the days, 70 parim are brought, 70 bulls are offered, corresponding to the 70 primary nations of the world as they are listed in Bereshit. The Netziv, we'll soon see, explains that in the days to come, the nations of the world will bring their karbanot to Yerushalayim on Sukkot. That was the verse we had up above from Zechariah. In understanding that their own well-being depends on the offerings of the temple in Yerushalayim, meaning that their well-being is not dependent on the Gog, but it's dependent on Hashem. The Nitziv writes, this is source number 4, but it ba'er b'seder emor mishum depari hachag hu b'shil shiva umot. The bulls brought on the holiday are for the 70 nations. It says in Zechariah, they will come on Chol HaMoed Sukkot, lamod al karbanam, to stand by their sacrifice. The owner, the person for whom the sacrifice is being brought, needs to stand by their sacrifice. But understand that all of their sustenance, all of their prosperity is dependent on God, on these sacrifices. And if they don't come, if they don't recognize the source from where the blessing comes, then the blessings will not come from that source. This was actually what was taking place already during the time of Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo was a time that, according to some, that he thought he was ushering in the Messianic times, and his marrying all of these foreign women who had converted was to bring all the nations together. And he would say, Kohelet, the book of Ecclesiastes, on the holiday of Sukkot, as we do. That is still our custom, or the Megillah that we read on Sukkah is Kohelet. Hevel Havalin, Amar Kohelet.
Vanity of vanity.
Yes, right? Recognizing that all of the stuff, all of the protections, all of the gogs, the roofs that we build around us are not of any true substance. And he would read it then before the wise men of the world, when the nations and their representatives would come to Jerusalem to partake in these sacrifices that were being brought on their behalf. So that's when he would read Kohelet.
Actually, I like the other translation that is a papa bear,
Yeah.
That's a bit stronger.
Hevel Piv is
nothing more than a papa bear.
Yeah. Rav Hirsch goes further and speaks about on Hoshana Rabbah. So Sukkot is on Monday, Tuesday of next week, and those are days of Yom Tov in terms of driving, in terms of all those things. And we, of course, do our Lulav and Etrog during those days. That's Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are Chol HaMoed, as is Shabbat Chol HaMoed, and we don't use the Lulav Etrog on Shabbat. Sunday is the last day of Chol HaMoed, and that's known as Hoshana Rabbah, the Great Hoshana. And that is where we take Aravot, and there is a special part of the davening, special ceremony that we do Sunday morning with the Aravot. Aravot are the willow branches which were a part of the Lulav Etrog set, but now we take them as individually as they did in the temple, and we beat those willows. What is that about? So again, Rav Hirsch, with his beautiful, beautiful symbolism. The 4 species, this is number, what's this number? Number 5. The 4 species represent different things found in nature to be used for man's benefit. Number 1, things in nature that do not require any finishing touches by man, right? Sunlight, air, beautiful scents are represented by the myrtle, since the sense of smell is the most prominent characteristic. Number 2, things in nature of inherent benefit to man, but man must extract this benefit from them. Sustenance, food, are represented by the date, palm, branch. Okay? So the myrtle, its sunlight, air, and the scent, the fragrance reaches us. When it comes to number 2, there we must make the effort in order to gain our sustenance from it, as in food. The etrog falls under both categories 1 and 2. 3, things in nature which depend entirely on man for their perfection, upon which man exercises his power as their master, and from which he extracts all the usefulness that is in them by his skill. Nature supplies the raw materials only, and man refines them for his own use, dwelling, clothing, utensils. This category is represented by wood, and therefore by the arava, the willow, which has no scent, or taste, or sustenance. Something that is basically just wood. Thus the arava symbolizes man using his own power and skills. It represents man's conquest of the material world. The Jewish people's ideals can be compromised by overemphasizing their material wealth and relying on their efforts alone. Therefore, the prophets instituted the beating of the aravot on Hoshana Rabbah, following 7 circuits around the altar or the Torah. This symbolizes the rejection of self-seeking pride and the glorification of man's strength. The willow reminds us of those realms in which the mastery of man's spirit over things material manifest themselves most, those things which nourish pride. So we have those that come to us without our intervention. There are those that we need to extract, and there are those that are given totally to us that we mold, we shape, and there's the danger of kochi va'otzem yadi, as the verse says, my strength, my ingenuity. And the verse says, don't forget who gave. Now, you might have tremendous strength, and you might have a lot of ingenuity. Right? Every single one of us has our talents, and we're supposed to utilize those talents. But we have to remember who is the one who gave us those talents, who enabled us to build those talents. And therefore we take, so because there's the danger of this arrogance, of this pride, we need to take that and we beat it on the ground to knock out that arrogance. Lastly, we have the last source, which is about Shmini Atzeret. Shmini Atzeret, the verse says, V'yom hashmini mikodesh yalachem atzeret hi, right? On the 8th day, it is a gathering. Now we don't take the 4 minim. We don't take the 4 species. We don't utilize the sukkah. Actually, there are no accoutrements. There's no props. There's nothing, right? We don't have the matzah of Pesach, right? We don't have the shofar, right? It's just Shmini Atzeret is a time of just. I mentioned when I spoke over Yom Tov that in certain more Hasidic weddings, at the end of the wedding, most guests leave, and you're left with the intimate, the main family, right? And that's what Shmini Atzeret is. We've been doing all this for all the nations of the world, and then we kind of huddle up, right? And it's a different. The 70 bulls were already sacrificed for the nation of the world, and now we huddle up. This is a no longer this universal celebration. Now it is for the closest family members. So the Sfas Emes, just 1 second. Right? And this represents right, the after party of the world to come, when it's those who are closest will be there. The Sfat Emet says, Chaye olam hazeh rak chitzoniet. Life in this world is outwardly focused. L'chein tzarich hagana v'sukkah. And therefore we need this protection, the sukkah. Shia eidish HaKadosh Baruch Hu me'ir aleinu. This is God's testimony on us. Ki ikar chayenu haTorah v'chayolam haba. That the main point, focus of our lives is our spiritual connection, which we have through Torah and ultimately leading to the next world. Aval Shmini Atzeret shu mamish chayolam haba kanal. Shmini Atzeret, which is literally representing the life of the world to come. Lo tzarich hagana. There we don't even need that flimsy protection of the sukkah. Rak hi b'chinat Succah mamish. Shmini Atzeret and our connection to God, that is the sukkah that we ascend to as we make our way through the holiday of Sukkot until we come to Shmini Atzeret. So Shmini Atzeret often gets the short end of the stick. Well, what is it anyhow?